The conference room fell silent as Director Harrison cleared his throat. "Congratulations to our new VP of Operations," he announced, his voice cutting through the morning stillness. "Dylan Cross." For a heartbeat, I thought I'd misheard. My coffee cup paused halfway to my lips. Dylan? The kid who'd been here 8 months. The same Dylan who still asked me how to read quarterly projections like they were written in hieroglyphics. Around the mahogany table, polite applause erupted. Hands clapped in rhythmic waves. I forced my palms together, each clap echoing hollow in my chest. Harrison stood at the head of the room, his smile stretched wide like a politician at a rally. Dylan brings innovative thinking and bold leadership. He represents the future of Pinnacle Industries. The future. Those words hit like ice water in my veins. My future. The one I'd sacrificed 5 years of 60-hour weeks for. The one I'd built through missed family dinners and weekend calls that started with "Sorry to bother you, Mitchell, but..." Harrison's eyes found mine across the room. "Let's also thank Mitchell for his mentorship in preparing Dylan for this role." My throat constricted. 5 years of flawless performance, reduced to a training manual. The room exploded in another wave of applause. I nodded once, my jaw aching from holding the professional mask in place. The room emptied with the scrape of chairs and murmured congratulations. One by one, they filed out, shaking Dylan's hand, patting his back. I remained seated, staring at the untouched notepad before me. "Mitchell, stay behind for a minute?" Harrison's voice sliced through the departing chatter, smooth as polished marble. I nodded, watching Dylan slip out with a grin that belonged to someone who'd earned their place. The door clicked shut. Silence pressed against my eardrums. Harrison loosened his tie, leaning against the conference table like we were old friends sharing a drink. "Look, this isn't personal," he began, his tone dripping manufactured sympathy. "Dylan represents fresh blood, new energy. You understand. Fresh blood. From someone who couldn't differentiate between gross margin and net profit 3 months ago." I folded my hands in my lap. If I didn't, he'd see them shake. "You'll continue running the day-to-day operations," Harrison continued. "Nobody knows the systems like you do. That's your strength." My strength. As if being indispensable was consolation for being overlooked. Then Harrison leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Think about your mortgage, Mitchell." My head snapped up. "Excuse me." "Stability matters," he said softly, like a father offering advice instead of wielding a blade. "This job keeps your world steady. Walking away, that would be risky, wouldn't it?" The air thickened with unspoken threats. He thought he owned me. Thought my responsibilities were chains around my ankles. I swallowed hard, my throat raw. "Is that all?" Harrison smiled. The kind that never touched his eyes. "Not quite." He straightened, smoothing his tie back into place. "Train Dylan well, and I'll make sure your dedication is recognized. Eventually." Eventually. A word as empty as every broken promise before it. For a moment, I imagined what would happen if I laughed. Loud, harsh, the kind that shatters pretense. Instead, I said nothing. I just stared at the man who'd turned 5 years of loyalty into leverage. "You're a professional, Mitchell," he added. "I know you'll do what's expected." I stood slowly, chair legs scraping against polished hardwood. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my fingertips, but my voice stayed level. "Sure, Harrison. What's expected?" I walked out without looking back, my footsteps echoing like a countdown timer in the empty hallway. That night, I sat in my home office staring at the glow of my laptop screen. Harrison's words echoed like a taunt. "Eventually your dedication will be recognized." Eventually. That word sat like poison in my throat. I opened the drawer and pulled out a folder marked performance reviews. 5 years of excellence documented in neat, professional language. Exceeds expectations. Critical to operations. Management material. Management material. Harrison first said those words in September 2019, his voice warm, almost fatherly. We were in his corner office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. I remember how hope swelled in my chest. "We reward loyalty here," he'd added. "Big things ahead for the right people." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. Back then, my daughter Emma was only 10, still leaving drawings on my desk that said "World's Best Dad." I told myself the late nights were temporary, that the hours I poured into Pinnacle were an investment in our future. But temporary stretched into years. I still remember one night in particular. The desk lamp glowing at midnight. Empty coffee mug leaving rings on budget reports. My phone buzzed with a photo from my wife. Emma on stage in her school play, wearing angel wings. I'd promised to be there. Instead, I was buried in Harrison's email marked urgent, need projections tonight. I typed until my wrists burned, whispering apologies to the empty room as if Emma could hear me. Another memory crashed over me. Emma's 13th birthday. I was standing in a client's lobby when Harrison texted, "Patience pays off, Mitchell. Your time is coming." The text arrived just as my wife sent a video of Emma blowing out candles without me there. Perfect timing, like a cruel joke from the universe. And so I stayed patient. I stayed late. I stayed loyal. I swallowed disappointment every time Harrison said, "Not yet but soon." Now, sitting in the dim glow of my home office, I saw it all for what it was. 5 years of traded moments, burned weekends, and hollow promises. All for a title that was never mine to claim. The bitterness settled cold in my chest, heavier than any deadline, sharper than any performance metric. For the first time in years, I wondered if the man staring back from the black computer screen was someone Emma could still be proud of. Because the truth was undeniable now. Every sacrifice I'd made was for a promise that never existed. The office was tomb quiet when I left my desk that Thursday night. Past 11 p.m., long after the cleaning crew had finished and the fluorescent lights had dimmed to their energy-saving glow. My footsteps echoed softly against polished tile as I walked toward the break room for coffee I didn't really want. That's when I heard it. Voices, low and intimate, spilling into the empty corridor like smoke. Harrison's voice. I froze just short of the glass hallway leading to his office. His door wasn't completely closed, and sound carried too well in this building's open design. "He'll never cause problems," Harrison said, his tone casual, almost amused. "Mitchell's solid, dependable, but he needs the paycheck. And Dylan's family." The words hit like a physical blow to my stomach. A deeper voice responded. "Probably Richards from corporate. You're certain he won't push back? 5 years is a long investment." Harrison laughed. A soft, dismissive sound that scraped against my skin like sandpaper. "He won't. He can't afford to. Mortgage, kids' college fund coming up. He'll stay in line." My fingernails dug crescents into my palms. Every word was another twist of the blade. Then came the part that stole every breath from my lungs. "He'll train Dylan better than anyone else could," Harrison added with confidence that made bile rise in my throat. "Hell, he'll make the kid look brilliant doing it." Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not with the kind of rage that shouts and slams doors, but with a quiet, clean break that feels permanent. For 5 years, I'd carried this company on my back. I'd missed birthdays, skipped anniversaries, given every piece of myself because I believed loyalty mattered. And here was Harrison reducing me to a line item in his nepotism playbook. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, fluorescent hum loud in my ears, pulse hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. My hands trembled, but my vision sharpened in a way that almost scared me. "They think I'm trapped," I whispered to the empty hallway. My reflection stared back from the glass wall, eyes bright and unblinking. "They're wrong." I turned and walked away without making a sound, leaving Harrison to his laughter and his lies. With every step toward the elevator, the anger settled, not as fire but as steel. Cold, deliberate, unbending. And in that moment, I knew something Harrison didn't. Nothing in this building would ever own me again. Rain drummed against my car windshield like impatient fingers. I sat in the parking garage at 10:30 p.m., dashboard clock glowing green in the darkness. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. My phone buzzed. Emma's name on the screen. I hesitated before answering, forcing the tremor out of my voice. "Hey, sweetheart." "Dad, are you okay? Mom said you had a big meeting today." Her voice was soft, concerned, the voice of a 15-year-old who'd learned to read silence like a warning sign. I stared at droplets racing down the glass, blurring the world outside. My throat burned. I'm fine, honey. Did you get it? The promotion. The question gutted me. I saw her face when I'd promised things would get better soon. College visits, weekend trips we never took, all while I was missing school plays to answer Harrison's midnight emails. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. I'll tell you everything tomorrow, okay? Get some sleep. Love you, Dad. Love you too, Emma. When the line went dead, I let the first tear fall, then another. The weight of 5 years pressed down until breathing felt optional. Then, just as suddenly, I stopped crying. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat, screen glow cutting through the dark like a blade. My fingers moved without hesitation, typing words that would sever everything. Dear Harrison, this is my formal notice of resignation, effective immediately. I will honor a 2-week transition period. I read it twice. No explanations, no apologies. Just an exit wound, clean and final. By the time I slid the envelope across Harrison's desk Friday afternoon, he'd just returned from parading Dylan through the warehouse like a prized trophy. What's this? His voice sharpened as his eyes scanned the letter. Then his head jerked up, color flooding his face. You're walking away from everything we've built? I said nothing. No company will hire a quitter, Mitchell. You understand that? You're destroying your career over wounded pride. I held his gaze, steady as ice. Maybe. But it'll be my choice, not yours. For the first time since I'd known him, Harrison didn't have a comeback. He just stared, searching for the fear he thought he owned. But it wasn't there anymore. I turned to leave, my footsteps echoing like a countdown timer. Each step felt lighter than the last. Monday morning began with my phone vibrating at 5:45 a.m. I'd been awake for an hour, drinking coffee in the quiet of my kitchen, when Dylan's name flashed across the screen. Mitchell, thank God, he blurted before I could speak, his voice cracking like a teenager who'd lost his homework. Apex Industries is threatening to cancel their contract. Something about delivery schedules being completely wrong. They need answers by 2 p.m. or they walk. Apex Industries. Our biggest client. A $3.2 million account I'd managed for 3 years without a single missed deadline. Slow down, I said, my tone even and calm. Pull up the logistics portal. Tell me which shipments are flagged. A pause. Then, I don't know how to access the logistics portal. There are like 12 different systems and, his voice dropped to a whisper, Harrison thinks I have everything under control. Of course he did. I'll walk you through it, I said. But listen carefully. You'll need to know this for next time. For the next 4 hours, I became a lifeline he didn't deserve but desperately needed. I explained backup suppliers, escalation protocols, how to reroute shipments without triggering penalty clauses. My words were precise, my tone professional, even as I typed notes into a separate document, a complete map of every process, every workaround I'd mastered over 5 years. Not for Dylan. For me. For the record. By 11:30 a.m., the crisis was contained. Apex got their shipments. Dylan exhaled into the phone like a man reprieved from execution. You're incredible, Mitchell. I don't know how you keep all this straight. Experience, I almost said. Instead, documentation helps. When I walked into the office later, Harrison was holding court by the elevator bank, voice booming with manufactured confidence. Team, everything's under control. Minor hiccup with Apex, but Dylan handled it like the leader he is. His smile was wide, but his eyes betrayed him. They darted to me for half a second, sharp with suspicion, before snapping back to his audience. I smiled politely, walked past without a word, and sat at my desk to continue writing. Step-by-step guides, vendor hierarchies, crisis protocols. My entire playbook laid bare in black and white. Not because they asked for it. Because I wanted it done on my terms. By Friday, the document was complete. I closed the file, exhaled slowly, and looked around the bustling office. No one saw the storm gathering, least of all Harrison, still strutting on borrowed time. But I saw it. And when it broke, I'd already be gone. The coffee shop on 5th Street hummed with quiet conversations and the hiss of steaming milk. I slid into a corner booth, adjusting my tie as David Chun, CEO of Stratford Solutions, extended his hand across the polished table. 5 years at Pinnacle, he said, scanning my resume on his tablet. Operations expertise without the title. Impressive portfolio. I've managed multi-million-dollar accounts across 6 regions, I replied, steady but not desperate. Apex Industries, Cornerstone Manufacturing, Atlantic Distribution. I know their systems, their challenges, and how to keep them loyal. David leaned back, studying me like someone weighing not just a candidate, but a strategy. Then he smiled. We're expanding aggressively into the Southeast market. Your client relationships give us a significant advantage. He tapped his tablet once, then looked me dead in the eye. Vice President of Regional Operations. Salaries 40% higher than your current base, plus equity participation. Vice President. The words landed like sunlight after years of darkness. There's one condition, David continued. We need your network. Your reputation in the industry is what makes this work. It wasn't unethical. Clients choose who they trust, and relationships transcend company logos. I nodded. They trust me because I deliver results. That won't change. Good. His grin widened. Word travels fast in our industry. I hear Harrison promoted family over competence. Is that accurate? The question struck like a match in dry grass. I didn't flinch. It's accurate. David chuckled, shaking his head. Clients despise instability. You leaving sends a signal. They'll follow the steady hand, the one who actually knows what they're doing. For the first time in months, something bloomed in my chest that wasn't anger or exhaustion. It was possibility. As we stood and shook hands, David said, "We'll have the offer ready by Monday. Welcome to your next chapter, Mitchell." Outside, late afternoon sun spilled gold across the street, warm against my face for the first time in years. I didn't feel owned. I felt unstoppable. Harrison summoned me to his office Tuesday afternoon. The tone wasn't a request, it was a command issued by a man who still believed he held all the cards. I walked in to find him standing behind his desk, jaw tight, sleeves rolled up like someone preparing for a fight he thought he'd already won. The blinds were half closed, slicing afternoon sunlight into harsh stripes across the room. "Sit," he said. I remained standing. He exhaled through his nose, then slid a sheet of paper toward me. "Interviewing with competitors while you're still on my payroll. That's corporate espionage, Mitchell." I met his stare, hands resting calmly at my sides. "It's called exploring opportunities." Harrison's lips curled into that condescending smile I knew too well. "Opportunities? You think Stratford will save you? Face reality." He stepped closer, words landing like physical blows. "Men like you hit a ceiling at 45. Dylan represents the future." The air in the room tightened, every molecule vibrating with tension. For a second, I felt rage clawing up my spine, begging to spill out in flames. Instead of shouting, I smiled. Just barely. The kind of quiet that makes people lean in before the blade slips between their ribs. "Is that so?" My voice was gentle, almost conversational. Harrison smirked, mistaking restraint for surrender. "You're competent, Mitchell. I'll give you that. But you're finished here. And if you think you can walk out with my clients..." "Your clients." I cut him off, voice like winter wind. "Those relationships exist because I built them. Not Pinnacle. Not you." His face darkened. "Don't test me. If you try to take them, I'll destroy you in court." That's when I leaned forward, slow and deliberate, and said the words that cracked his foundation. "Show me the non-compete I signed." Silence. Thick and absolute, like oxygen had been vacuumed from the room. Harrison blinked, his mouth opening and closing without sound. I watched realization wash over him, hot, then cold, as the truth settled like lead in his stomach. I straightened, smoothing my sleeve cuff. "Didn't think so." His jaw worked, teeth grinding, but nothing emerged. I turned toward the door, footsteps clicking like gunshots against polished hardwood. Before stepping out, I looked back over my shoulder. "You wanted loyalty, Harrison. You mistook it for weakness." The blinds rattled as the door closed behind me. For the first time, he understood the truth. I wasn't leaving quietly. The exit and the domino effect. My last Friday at Pinnacle came without fanfare. No confetti, no farewell cake, just the steady hum of fluorescent lights and the soft clicking of keyboards. It felt surreal, like watching a movie where the hero walks away from an explosion without looking back. I arrived early, before most of the office stirred, and packed my belongings in silence. A framed photo of Emma at her graduation. The brass paperweight she'd given me for Father's Day. A leather portfolio filled with 5 years of strategies Harrison would never understand. Each item slid into the cardboard box with the weight of a closed chapter. By 9 a.m., the office buzzed with activity. Whispers followed me like cologne as I navigated the maze of cubicles. People smiled too quickly, offered hollow well wishes laced with curiosity and fear. They all sensed what I knew: Pinnacle was fracturing, and the sound carried. Harrison called me into his office one final time. He stood behind his desk, smile stretched so tight it looked painful. "So," he said, voice strained. "Last day." "That's right. You're making a mistake, Mitchell." His eyes were glassy, hard with something between rage and desperation. "You think Stratford will make you a star? They'll chew you up like everyone else." I didn't respond. I let silence fill the room until it pressed against his chest like a weight. Then I smiled, small, calm, carrying everything I didn't need to say aloud. "Good luck, Harrison." The muscles in his jaw twitched as I turned and walked out without a backward glance. At my desk, I opened my laptop for the final time and composed a farewell email. Subject: Transition Notes. Body: Team, it's been a privilege working with you. Best of luck with the new leadership. You're in capable hands. Mitchell. I hit send, watching the words fly into cyberspace like a tiny barbed arrow disguised as courtesy. Closing the laptop felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 5 years. My security badge clinked softly as I set it on the desk. The sound was final, like a judge's gavel hitting wood. I lifted the box and walked toward the elevator. Each step felt lighter, as if gravity itself was releasing its hold. By the time the doors slid shut, Harrison hadn't appeared. Good. This wasn't about drama. It was about peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the storm was coming. My phone buzzed as the elevator reached the ground floor. New email from Patricia Williams, Procurement Director at Apex Industries. Subject: Pinnacle Transition Concerns. The first sentence made my pulse spike. If Dylan's handling our account, we're exploring alternatives. I stared at the screen, corners of my mouth curling into something sharp. That single sentence was more explosive than anything I could have orchestrated. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to leave the match on the table. Harrison had built his empire from paper. As I stepped into sunlight, the weight slid completely off my shoulders. The air smelled like rain and freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't chained to someone else's vision. I was walking toward my own. 6 months later, justice served cold. I sat in my corner office on the 28th floor of Stratford Solutions' new headquarters. The city skyline shimmered in late afternoon sun, glass towers catching fire in the light. The business journal lay open on my desk, its glossy cover screaming headlines in bold type: Pinnacle Industries loses 70% revenue amid leadership crisis. I skimmed the article again, each word as satisfying as aged wine. CEO Harrison Mills terminated following board investigation. Dylan Cross resigned after 4 months, citing personal reasons. Multiple clients cited leadership instability as reason for contract cancellations. The piece mentioned lawsuits, penalties, and a particularly devastating $3.2 million breach of contract settlement with Apex Industries. Just like that, the empire Harrison thought he controlled had crumbled under the weight of his own arrogance. I traced the article's edge with my fingertip, not from spite, but from quiet validation. There was no gloating, no fireworks in my chest. Just calm certainty that everything had unfolded exactly as it should. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Dinner tonight? Your choice of restaurant." I smiled. She'd grown taller, her voice deeper, but she still treasured our Friday night dinners. And for the first time in years, I never had to respond with maybe next time. I closed the magazine, slipped it into my desk drawer, and grabbed my coat. The coffee shop on Maple Street was quiet when I walked in, the kind of place that smelled like roasted beans and possibility. At a corner table sat Dylan, looking different somehow. Older, humbled, though still carrying that earnestness that had made me pity him more than hate him. A thick textbook lay open before him, Strategic Operations Management. "Mitchell," he said, standing when he spotted me. "Thanks for meeting me." I sat across from him, the gentle hum of the espresso machine filling pauses between words. "I wanted to thank you," Dylan said finally, his voice steady but soft, "for how you handled everything. You could have let me fail completely. And honestly, I did fail, but you tried to help when you didn't have to." I tilted my head, offering a small smile. "You were thrown into something you weren't prepared for. That wasn't your fault." His eyes met mine, clear and direct. "You deserved that position, not me." For a long moment, we sat in silence, truth hanging between us like a shared confession. Then I stood, sliding a 5 across the table for his coffee. "You'll be fine, Dylan. This time you're learning the right way." Outside, the air was cool and clean. I walked toward my car, the city alive with possibility. Stratford's market share was climbing rapidly, expanding across 4 new territories. My name was on the masthead now, bold and permanent, Vice President of Regional Operations Mitchell Torres. Tonight I'd have dinner with Emma without a laptop between us, without the phantom buzz of urgent emails demanding my attention. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't slamming doors or burning bridges. Sometimes it's silence and success. I walked away from people who underestimated me and built something stronger on my own terms. That's the real lesson here. Your value isn't defined by someone else's ceiling. It's defined by what you choose to do when they think you're trapped. Sometimes the quietest moves speak the loudest. Success doesn't always roar, it whispers when you're brave enough to bet on yourself.